Rise in the midst of World War II, when aircraft production was all about speed, firepower, and sheer reliability, one prototype emerged that looked like it belonged to a comic book or a futuristic vision of aviation. With its sweeping curves, sleek blended wing profile, and menacing silhouette, the McDonnell XP-67 became known as the Bat or Moonbat. If Batman had existed in the 1940s and needed a personal warplane, this might have been the one. But unlike a superhero story, the XP-67's tale is one of soaring ambition and crushing disappointment. Conceived as a bold leap in aeronautical engineering, it promised extraordinary performance. In practice, it became a lesson in how innovation can outpace practicality. This is the story of how the Moonbat came to be, why it captivated imaginations, how it stumbled in testing, and why it ultimately perished before leaving its mark on the battlefield. The birth of a radical idea. In the early 1940s, the U.S. Army Air Corps issued a daring challenge through its R-40C request for proposals. Rather than asking for incremental improvements, it sought revolutionary interceptor designs. The Air Corps wanted something faster, stronger, and more capable than any fighter of its time. An aircraft that could climb rapidly, fly long distances, and carry heavy armament suitable for hunting down enemy bombers. James McDonnell, a visionary designer eager to put his young company on the map, seized the opportunity. His first submission, called Model 1, was as unconventional as it gets. It featured a mid-wing layout with smooth aerodynamic fairings that blended the fuselage into the wings, powered by a single engine buried deep in the body. Through long shafts and angled gearboxes, this engine would drive two pusher propellers mounted on the wings. The concept promised less drag and futuristic performance. But when evaluated against 22 rival submissions, it ranked near the bottom. The propulsion scheme was considered unproven and potentially a nightmare to maintain. Yet the military saw something intriguing in McDonnell's approach to aerodynamics. Instead of rejecting the company outright, they offered a modest contract to refine the design. That lifeline led to Model 2A. This new version abandoned the eccentric single-engine layout for a more conventional twin-engine design. Each engine sat in streamlined nacelles that blended seamlessly into the wings. The fuselage itself maintained an airfoil shape, effectively turning the body into part of the lifting surface. Laminar flow principles shaped every line to minimize drag. On paper, the predictions were jaw-dropping: a top speed of 472 miles per hour, 760 kilometers per hour. To put that in context, no operational fighter in 1941 could reach even 440 miles per hour. It was bold, futuristic, and risky. The Army approved the project, designating it XP-67, and ordered 2 prototypes. For McDonnell Aircraft, which had never built a plane before, this was a monumental breakthrough. Design: a fighter from another world. By the time detailed engineering took shape, the XP-67 looked unlike any aircraft of its era. Its flattened, wide silhouette resembled a giant bat or manta ray, inspiring the nickname Moonbat. The fuselage flowed seamlessly into the wings, an early attempt at what today we call a blended wing body. The intended firepower was equally radical. At various points, engineers considered everything from banks of machine guns to a massive 75mm cannon in the nose. Eventually, they settled on 6 nose-mounted 37mm cannons, an extraordinary punch for a single-seat fighter. A pressurized cockpit was also envisioned, allowing pilots to fly at high altitude without cumbersome oxygen gear. In theory, the XP-67 would have been faster, higher flying, and more heavily armed than anything in the skies. But theory and reality rarely align without growing pains. Construction woes. Building the XP-67 proved as difficult as conceiving it. By April 1942, a full-scale mock-up revealed the headaches ahead. Every system, engines, cooling ducts, turbos, guns, and landing gear, had to fit into an incredibly slim and aerodynamically constrained frame. By the end of 1943, the first prototype was nearly complete. Cost had ballooned, Delays piled up and the Army canceled the second prototype before it was even finished. The survival of the project now rested entirely on one aircraft. In December 1943, the XP-67 finally rolled out. With its long, pointed nose, smooth contours, and wide wings, it looked like nothing else in the Army's arsenal. The excitement was palpable, but so were the challenges lurking under its skin. Ground tests and first flights. The XP-67's troubles appeared almost immediately. During taxi tests in December 1943, both engines caught fire due to exhaust issues. Repairs delayed the program, but by early January 1944, the aircraft was cleared for its maiden flight. Test pilot Everett Ed Elliott took the controls. On January 6, 1944, the Moonbat finally took to the skies. For 6 minutes, it flew gracefully, validating years of effort. But then the engines overheated, forcing Elliott to land quickly. Subsequent flights showed promise. The XP-67 handled well in steady flight, stable, responsive, and free of major quirks. Yet problems kept mounting. During its fourth flight, both engines oversped, tearing themselves apart. To make matters worse, the canopy blew off mid-flight. Somehow, Elliott managed to land safely. His cool head saved the prototype more than once, earning him the role of unsung hero in the saga. New engines were installed, but they proved unreliable and underpowered. By May 1944, Army test pilots confirmed what McDonnell engineers already feared. The XP-67 simply couldn't deliver. Underwhelming results. Instead of the predicted 472 miles per hour, the XP-67 managed around 405 miles per hour. Acceleration was sluggish, climb rates shallow, and takeoff distances long. Worst of all, it struggled on one engine, a critical flaw for a twin-engine fighter. By mid-1944, frontline fighters like the P-51 Mustang were already faster, more agile, and combat-proven. Even with its futuristic looks, the XP-67 was obsolete before it was ever ready. The final blow. On September 6, 1944, disaster struck. During a routine test flight, one of the XP-67's engines caught fire mid-air. Elliott skillfully landed the aircraft at Lambert Field, positioning it into the wind to control the flames. But a brake failure prevented him from turning fully, and the fire consumed the prototype. Elliott escaped unharmed, but the only flying XP-67 was reduced to a charred wreck. With the second prototype canceled long before, the Army officially terminated the program days later. Legacy of the Moonbat. The destruction of the XP-67 marked the end of a dream. For McDonnell Aircraft, it was a painful setback, but far from the end of the road. The company soon shifted to jet research and later produced the F-H Phantom for the Navy. In the decades that followed, McDonnell Douglas would go on to design icons like the F-4 Phantom II and the F-15 Eagle, aircraft that truly changed air combat. The XP-67 never reached its potential, but its daring design foreshadowed future innovations. Its blended wing-body concept echoes in modern stealth bombers like the B-2 Spirit and advanced fighters like the F-22 Raptor. Even in failure, it contributed to the evolution of aviation. A dream. Too soon. The Moonbat was a fighter born of ambition. It tried to leap a generation ahead, merging aerodynamic artistry with heavy firepower in a single radical package. But it came too early. Engines weren't reliable enough. Manufacturing was strained by wartime demands, and the learning curve was simply too steep. By the time it showed even modest promise, the war had moved on. The Mustang, Thunderbolt, and Lightning were already proving themselves in Europe and the Pacific, leaving little room for an untested dream. Today, no XP-67 survives. Only photographs, fragments, and memories of its striking silhouette remain. Yet, in many ways, that's enough. The Moonbat reminds us of a time when designers dared to imagine aircraft that looked like they'd flown in from the future. A time when ambition outpaced technology, but in doing so, paved the runway for the jets and stealth aircraft that followed. The XP-67 may have burned out, but it left behind the sparks of progress that shaped generations of fighters to come. And that's the incredible yet tragic story of the XP-67 Moonbat. If you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten aviation history, don't forget to hit that like and make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and as always, let me know in the comments what aircraft or aviation mystery you'd like me to cover next.